Last time on the Cyborg Tinkerer,
Brain and brain! What is brain?
Aurora and Gwen sneak into the stables, even though Gwen is on crutches. Meg makes me very uncomfy with the scene with the 14-year-old stable boy. The girls overhear the mistress monologuing her entire evil plan to kill the Emperor. The next morning, Gwen and Aurora return to the ballroom to find the Emperor has everyone hostage. Apparently, he just kept them there overnight for some reason. Zombie Bastion tries to shoot the Emperor, but Gwen prevents it. The Emperor predictably still hates cyborgs, and the mistress appears and monologues some more, this time about her backstory. The Emperor wants to use Gwen to make a giant gun? The mistress pulls out a giant red cartoon button and calls out a horde of cyborg zombies. Fortunately, Gwen uses her main character powers to talk the mistress down and she withdraws the zombies, but everyone forgot that they sent Aurora to go get a dragon. Yes, all of that really happened. This book, I did not expect this to go so balls to the wall, but here we are. Let's keep going. I looked ahead at the chapters and there's like a bunch of short chapters, so I might read, this one's like 3 pages long, and then I might read the next one right away as well. If you hear noises in the background, my dryer is running because, you know, house noises. These characters really don't care about death. Aurora is running back through the palace to try to get the dragon, as you recall, and she hurried through the palace. She stopped many times to duck behind piles of bodies.
Hide behind the mound of dead bards.
Like, she doesn't even view them as people. They might as well be bales of straw. The stables are completely unguarded, so I don't know why this is an important thought for her to have. There's a giant padlock on the dragon's cage, of course, and it said, she spotted a pile of tools neatly packed in a massive box. The circus crew's tools. Like, why did we need to know that they're the circus crew's tools? Why does it matter? She's gonna go free the dragon with an oversized crimping pliers? I don't think that's gonna bust a dragon out of a cage, even if they are very big crimping pliers. Could Meg just not think of the word, or does Aurora not know what bolt cutters are? Now the dragon has cyborg talons. It's swiping its cyborg talons at her. Even though, A, why would you need to replace the talons on a dragon? It's a dragon. And B, I thought they said they couldn't cyborgify the dragon because it was too aggressive. This book is just non-stop contradictions. I am not convinced that there was a single beta reader involved at any point in this book's creation. I refuse to believe it. So she speaks soothingly to the dragon. There's no indication whether that really works, but apparently the dragon is intelligent enough to understand that she's trying to free it, so it stops trying to like swipe at her through the bars. Aurora, why did you think this? So Aurora is struggling with the lock, she can't get it, and she's just bemoaning the fact that she came all the way here for nothing. It said the Emperor hadn't been the person she thought he'd be, a nobleman and consumer of the arts, someone who wanted to change the cyborg prohibition law. He created the law! I'm so baffled by why Aurora thought that he was gonna, like, change his mind. This isn't his son. This isn't some new guy, freshly elected emperor or anything. This is the same guy.
If you're gonna get mad at me every time I do something stupid, then I guess I'll just have to stop doing stupid things.
Good.
She also thinks back to, like, when she left her parents and everything, and I'm like, oh, you remember that, do you? Where does your memory cut off? I just don't understand the forgetting. I think we're just meant to be like, oh, it was a plot point to help Gwen realize that something was going on with their chips, and that's it. She thought of the bodies she'd seen during the obstacle course of the first competition. Yeah, what about the bodies you were literally hiding behind? But in a one last moment of brute strength, Aurora finally busts the lock, and the dragon is like, fucking bye, and goes flying out. She bounced. Why are people always bouncing? She fell to the ground, bouncing twice. These people are they're made of rubber. And of course, her cyborg hand got broken again while she was bouncing off the floor where the dragon knocked her down. This girl cannot keep a working cyborg hand. This stable is apparently really big, like really, really big, because the dragon is flying around inside of it. Of course, the dragon is like lighting the stable on fire, which begs the question, why didn't it just burn down the stable while it was in the cage? Maybe the cage was magic. But the dragon has now weakened the roof enough to claw its way out, and now it's just gone. And Aurora thinks, what have I done? And I'm like, I mean, exactly what you were told to. They told you to go release the dragon. It was one of Gwen's stupid plans, and you have enacted it. And we're just gonna go on to chapter 37, because like I said, this one was real short. 37's a little bit longer, but not much. Now we're back with Gwen. Gwen sees that the dragon is loose, and she's like, yes, this is exactly what I wanted. Because I think Gwen's about to go full action hero. I've heard a lot about the yippee-ki-yay nature of Gwen in this final portion. Poor Bastion is just become a non-character. He's been damseled so hard he's not even in this book anymore. And Aurora's job is essentially a sidekick. So now Super Gwen will save the day. She goes back to her room where her skimmer is waiting because they let her keep the fucking thing. I feel like the skimmer only exists because Meg had this idea of Gwen chasing down a dragon on a skimmer, and she wanted to get that in the book somehow. That and horniness, just a general horniness. Also, possibly the scene from Harry Potter where he goes flying off on the dragon. I feel like that might also be a factor because the dragon is flying around this like city and sitting on rooftops and like knocking down shingles and stuff. Nobody's like trying to attack or deal with the dragon, but Gwen is following it around and she's pestering it by shooting at it, which the bullets don't do anything. This is a very repetitive, awkward sentence. Those who could afford it installed massive force fields over a city or location, which prevented ships from returning to space by erecting a massive impenetrable force field in the shape of a dome over a location. It feels like she had two ideas for how the sentence should go, and she just kept both of them. Also, we don't care about civilian deaths because Gwen reminds us that these people are bad and they would kill her given the chance. So it's okay if they get cooked alive in their homes by dragon fire. Also, I completely forgot that she had a broken leg, but apparently you can ride your skimmer with one of those. I don't even know if she stands up on this thing. Maybe she sits on it. Maybe it's nothing like I pictured, because it's never once described. The dragon is providing a big old distraction while Aurora and the other cyborgs head for their ship. And they've got there, and there's watchmen there too. Like, how many of these fuckers did the mistress have? Oh, Jenna Moresi, you keep popping up in this book, don't you? Aurora ambled forward. That is the most Jenna Moresi sentence I've ever heard. Not only does it have ambled, but it also has forward. In general, we can ascertain that a character is moving forward, so perhaps be more helpful to be like, she moved towards the gangplank, or she moved towards one of the waiting watchmen, something like that. Forward, what is forward? How does that help us picture the scene? So they take the masks off of one of the guards in a weird moment, and it's someone that Aurora recognizes, and she's like, oh no, what have they done to you? And then Gwen just hits the woman over the head and she falls unconscious. Apparently the zombies can fall unconscious. Gwen says she'll tinker her chip later. That will never not sound like a euphemism. But I don't think this lady's gonna be happy to wake up and find out that she's been turned into a horrifying zombie either. The mistress is here. She just also here. And of course my memory card is running out of space. Can I do this in 4 minutes? Let's go. Bastion was conveniently given a whole different chip rather than having his chip encoded so that he could be remote controlled. Again, that's very convenient, but allows us to just do a quick chip switch and have old Bastion back. So this is two ways that you can easily turn cyborgs evil. One, you can turn them into zombies somehow. I'm not sure how the mistress did it, but she did it. Two, you can replace their chips. The Emperor was right. The Emperor was right. Cyborgs are dangerous. They're too easily hacked and tampered with. Unfortunately, they don't get their ship going fast enough, and a dome force field, as we've established, that's what they are, twice, forms over the city, and they are trapped there. So they have just set a dragon loose on a city in which they are now trapped that is full of people who want to murder them. It's just wall-to-wall, excellent planning and situations for all of these characters, I must say. But now I have to stop because my memory card is almost out of space. I will see you when I see you for the next chapter. Bye! Hello and welcome! We are in a totally different place. I decided we needed to mix things up visually, so we're actually on a little mini vacation that Adam is over here, are taking, there he is, are taking for my birthday. So, but you can tell for sure that it's me because I'm wearing the exact same sweater I've been wearing in every single one of these read-along videos. So we've got a whole bunch of chapters left to get through. There's not much book left, but a lot of short chapters, so I'm going to record a couple while I'm here. I'm going to try to save the last chapter like I usually do so we can have real fun and I can be in costume and everything. For once, I have fruit, a healthful snack. We're at chapter 38. So they've got a force field over the city, and it's like a big old dome, but in the middle of it, it trickles down to the power source, which is like in the middle of the city. So these characters are just running all over the place, like the Scooby-Doo gang. So they're like, we ran from the palace to the docks, now you have to run from the docks to the middle of the city, and there's a dragon running around, and it's just like, why? If there's gonna be an arc, we need to see it. Gwen is like, get the ship in the air, I'll go disable the force field. And it says once she'd been willing to leave these people, to abandon the circus and those she'd come to know. And it's like, yeah, there was that scene where she was leaving, and then Bastion, like, his hotness, convinced her to stay. And that's not the character arc that you think it is, Gwen. These cyborgs had become her new family. In some ways, they had replaced the family she could no longer remember. Since fucking when?
Since fucking Gwen.
Only, no one has fucked Gwen.
Aww.
That's just it. There have only been horniness. Everyone's like, Gwen's gonna sacrifice herself. She's so noble. Also, she's like, she has to leave. She's gonna leave Bastion before they put his chip back in, so she doesn't get like a sweet goodbye or anything. Because she's like, it would take too long to take his chip out and put his real chip in. And I'm like, since when? Just pop the new one out, put the old one in. At this point, I keep forgetting that Gwen has a broken leg until she like limps somewhere, and I'm like, oh yeah. Also, we don't really hear about what the other ships are doing, if anybody's like started fighting on the docks with each other because the ships can't leave. Where's the dragon? What's it doing? Gwen is like, I can take out this generator. I have learned about cyborg tinkering, and I'm a ship tinkerer, so I can definitely do this. In a YA book, maybe sometimes it is a good idea for younger readers to reiterate the lesson that your character is supposed to have learned. But this is an adult book, and we're still getting, she'd learned to be more confident in herself. She'd hoped to hold on to that confidence when she came face to face with the force field technology she didn't understand. So, like, the book is telling me in this section all of the ways that Gwen has supposedly grown, but we have not seen it. The Gwen at the end of this book is indistinguishable from the Gwen at the beginning of this book, except she doesn't talk about the fact that she's dying all the time. So she gets to the generator without any trouble. It's just out in the open, but there are guards surrounding it. As if they don't have better things to do. There's a dragon in the city, and a lot of them were just murdered by cyborg zombies. There are just an endless supply of guards in this city. But now Gwen has to start murdering them because they're standing all around the generator that she needs to get to. Also, Gwen is just bristling with weapons. She's covered in knives that she's throwing at them. Okay, somebody like yanked her off her hoverboard because she's flying around on her hoverboard being all like, woo, I'm the hero of this book, I'm better than all of you. And somebody yanked her off of the board, and she hits the ground, and she like just rolls over and starts slicing with her knives and like keeps fighting. She has a broken leg. Hitting the ground like that, she would be way too distracted going, ow, son of a bitch, that hurt, to start just be like competently battling off all of these guards. Again, we're just told that she has this experience. She moved on instinct, courtesy of years of experience out in open space. We never get to see it before she needs it. Show us things that your characters can do before they need it. So after she instinctively kills several more men, then she's like, oh, ow, yeah, that's right, I'm injured. And now suddenly she can't move fast enough, and somebody shoots her in the shoulder, which I'm sure will only mildly inconvenience her, as she is the baddest of badasses. This seems like it would be the sort of low-budget movie where every time we saw Gwen again, the bullet hole would be in a different place. Don't worry though, she has the strength, not only in her broken leg, but her freshly shot shoulder, to grab a dead soldier and haul him up in front of her as a meat shield. The last guard, she's killed pretty much everyone else by being an action hero all of a sudden. Cyborg Tinkerer action hero Gwen. And the last soldier has decided, even though he's surrounded by guns, knives, swords, he's gonna strangle her to death. She manages to knock him off of her, and then she lunges for a knife, and he, once again, his decision is to come back and try to continue strangling her. But now she's got a knife, so she stabs him in the eye. Probably should have just shot her, sir. And then she's like, okay, like, we get no moments with her of, like, just realizing how much pain she's in. You know, like, give your characters a minute. But instead, she's like, okay, last guy's dead. I have to go take out this generator now. I am curious, because she's like, I've never dealt with a force field generator before. But wouldn't the ships that they fly on, because they're like open air ships, I assumed that they had force fields, and that's how they kept everybody from like dying in the vacuum of space. Because nobody talks about wearing spacesuits or anything. So one would think that she would actually be familiar with force field generators. There's an off switch, a very obvious off switch, which I guess makes sense. But she doesn't want to use it because she's like, well, someone will come turn it back on again. But bitch, you just need it turned off long enough for your friends to escape. Just turn it off, wait a couple minutes, hope your friends got away, since you already decided you're sacrificing yourself, and then just like wait for more guards to show up and fight them all off using your amazing battle powers that you have. Another problem I've mentioned early on in this is how obvious it is that Meg, the author, has no idea how machines work and has no interest in researching how machines work. So when she's describing the inner workings of this machine, it is the most glossed over, skimmed over, uninteresting description, because she doesn't know how an engine works and she's not going to learn. It's like, thank you, I have no idea what I'm picturing, really. Spinning gears, I guess. Gwen decides that the option, because the wrong wires in Marzana's foot cause Marzana problems, that Gwen decides that that is the key idea that she needs. She's going to cut the wires. Genius, really.
You magnificent bastard, I read your book!
She's also acting like she's never seen a machine before. She used to work on spaceships, and I'm just baffled that she's so much like, gosh, how does this work? I have to think back to that time that I worked on somebody's robo-foot. Unfortunately, cutting the wires does not seem to have worked, and now she is completely baffled because this machine is unlike anything she has ever worked on before. For some reason, I have no idea why, the dragon has decided to show up. But she's probably going to get the dragon to destroy the shield generator, is my guess what's going to happen now. It's not enough that she uses her abilities as a tinkerer/engineer, the one thing that is established about this character. She can't use those skills. She has to use a dragon. By the way, sorry about the humming sound that was probably happening in the background. You guys are used to noises. That's the fan for the heater in this room.
For the fireplace, dear. For the lovely fireplace.
The fireplace, which is essentially a space heater.
You are committing a crime by not filming in front of.
It'd be even noisier if I was closer to it, though. So yeah, she does exactly what I predicted. She baits the dragon into into breathing fire onto the generator. And then she, on her hoverboard, just like shoots straight up into the air. And like her coat's on fire and her skin is burning, but she doesn't care because like injuries don't really bother Gwen, let's be real. How is that like a culmination of all things? Like the skills and abilities that the character has learned, the friends that she's made along the way. No, it's just she got a dragon to do it, and it was really easy.
Super easy. Barely an inconvenience.
Also, nobody's chasing this dragon. Like, the dragon just flew to the generator for reasons unclear, just to kill the generator for Gwen. And then it was probably like, high five, Gwen! You're the best! I love you, Gwen, because you're the coolest character. And then they probably went and had drinks or something. Or, and then Gwen had sex with the dragon. Damn it, she didn't have time to be injured. Bitch, you've been injured this whole time, and it has not slowed you down.
That's right, because she doesn't have time for it.
Mm-hmm. Occasionally remembering to say, ow, my leg hurts every now and then is not how you deal with an injured character. So, things in the city are now exploding, the generator exploded, other things are exploding, shrapnel everywhere, just chaos in the streets. But somehow, the men below, the soldiers, have noticed her floating over their heads and are like shooting at her. I think they would be too distracted, personally. But we gotta have everything chasing after Gwen. So the dragon's chasing her, the guards are shooting at her, everything has to be against her. Also, how many fucking soldiers are in this city? So the ships are leaving, the Obedient, her ship, is leaving, and soldiers are readying their own ship to pursue it. Why? There's a dragon on the loose. Thousands of you are dead. And yet you're still getting your ship together to chase after the ship full of cyborgs. Like, hunt them down later, guys. Priorities. Yeah, bullets are just like a mild inconvenience to Gwen. I think they tickle. Somebody else shoots her in the same shoulder, and she doesn't even fall off of her hoverboard. She's just like, ow. And now she's doing one of those superhero moments, you know, where the hero character, I can picture it in several movies, the hero character is flying straight up, death is like coming at them from below, the dragon, the explosions, the people shooting at her. Her ship is above her, she's flying straight up towards it, but she's not gonna make it, and you know she's gonna like fall unconscious and fall back, you know, very dramatically. Poor Aurora, as Gwen is like doing this heroic last minute like skyward charge, all she's thinking about is Bastion. So yeah, the chapter ends exactly as you predicted, I predicted, we all predicted. Anyone could see it coming. She passes out and just starts to fall back down towards the mouth of the dragon. Like, it is all 100% completely predictable. And you know what? I think that chapter was enough for me. Even though it wasn't that long, there was a lot of bullshit. So I'm going to stop and enjoy a little bit more of my birthday vacation. And we'll probably film more chapters here before I go. But we'll get to that when we get to it. Hello and welcome back for more of the Cyborg Tinkerer. I know you're a bit further away than usual, but that's just the way that this room is set up. And I have a nice little nest here and I didn't want to leave it, so we're just gonna keep going, and hopefully I won't run out of room on this memory card. Chapter 39 is really short, so we're just gonna plow right through that. By the way, I apologize for the windows in back of me. An interesting part of these airships that I think is kind of cool is that they still have to land in water. And that's an interesting touch that I think is just a little piece of world building that makes things feel slightly deeper. It's like there's something about these ships that's a little bit different. I wish that there was more of that, just like little world building details that don't serve the story but make your world cooler. Yeah, it says the oxygen and gravity fields took time, meaning engaging the oxygen and gravity fields on their ship, the Obedient, take a little while to rev up. But it implies to me that there are force fields, and then they would have things to create the force fields that Gwen presumably would have worked on. So like, why didn't she know how to work on the force field generator? I legitimately don't understand how that ball got dropped so hard, because it's so obvious. Gwen, as we have heard over and over again, is a celebrated ship and now cyborg tinkerer, and it would be a perfect time for her to use all of the things that she learned. She even goes to use something that she learned from repairing Marzana's foot, and it doesn't work. In the climax of your story, you should be using knowledge, skills, things that your character has learned along the way, and instead we're ignoring those so that she can use a dragon. And it would be super easy to still have the scene happen almost exactly the same way, except for, say, Gwen gets there, she knows exactly what to do, but as she's doing it, the dragon comes along, and she's like, well, crap, I guess I'm just gonna have to have the dragon breathe fire on it instead. You get the exact same results. A big problem that I have with Meg, and this is a problem that I suffer from myself, and then like my husband usually helps me figure it out, is she has no notion of numbers, of how many people there are anywhere, and as a result we the reader have no idea, because like there seems to be an endless supply of soldiers running around the capital city, and no matter how many we kill and get murdered by the dragon, they just keep coming. And on the ship, it says countless watchmen and performers scurried about the deck. So we don't even know how many people there are on board this ship. And it might not seem important, but it actually is. And like when I'm drafting, I often don't have a clear idea of the numbers, and then Adam over here goes back in and he's like, how big is this army? Like, what are the actual numbers? So this is a lesson that we can all take away. When you are dealing with a large group of people, it's helpful for your reader to be able to know, at least roughly, how many people we are dealing with. Are there still hundreds of performers? There shouldn't be, because a lot of them were eliminated in these stupid elimination trials. So how can they be countless on the deck of the ship? And how many friggin' soldiers are we dealing with? Is there any chance, like, is this entire planet just straight up covered in soldiers and they're just convening on the capital? Like, it gives us an idea of the stakes if we know the numbers that we're dealing with. And of course now we're getting the other side of the scene that we got in the last chapter where Gwen is flying towards the ship being chased by a dragon and all of the bazillion soldiers down below, and the other characters, we're with Aurora right now of course, are like, it's Gwen! Gwen, get to us, you freaking amazing hero who've been shot twice and has a broken leg and are still fine. Again, not knowing what the skimmer looks like, I have no idea, because it says that Gwen is clinging to her skimmer, but what does it look like? Is she like leaning so far forward that she's grabbing the like front edge of the surfboard, essentially, that I'm picturing? Or is it something that you sit on, like, you know, the Star Wars land speeders? It's never once described, so I have no idea what I'm picturing here. Yeah, this is sad. Aurora's the one who's out on the deck, leaning down, trying to be like, come on, Gwen, come on. And if you remember, the only person that Gwen was thinking about as she's doing this was Bastion. We got a scene that's kind of stolen from Treasure Planet. If you recall, in Treasure Planet, those of you who've seen it, there was a moment where they encountered a star that was going supernova, and it was obviously like essentially a storm, like it would be a storm if this was a story about ships that sailed on the sea. So they all had to tie themselves to the ship. And that's what the crew is doing now.
Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, my dear.
This book is almost entirely imitation, which, again, as I mentioned earlier in the read-alongs, imitation is not necessarily the sign of somebody who's never going to be a good author. Imitation is a really great way to learn. However, Meg here is in the student phase. She is learning from the other authors, and quite frankly, she really needs to stick, as I've said a million times, to Wattpad or something until she gets a better idea of her own voice, her own ideas. I started out in fan fiction too. Imitation and using other people's ideas, there's nothing wrong with that. You just eventually grow past that and find your own voice as an author. Meg is right on track. She's right on track to just keep practicing and becoming a good author someday, but she's not there, and she thinks she is, and she published this book, and that was a mistake. In this life or death moment, Aurora, who's still like leaning over the rail, like, come on, Gwen, you can make it. She realizes that Gwen is looking at Bastion, and she like has a moment of acceptance, like, they're good for each other. And I'm just like, why are we having this in the middle of this moment? So Aurora sees that Gwen is not gonna make it, and she goes up to where Bastion is at the helm, and she's like, go save our girl. So Bastion gets at least a moment to be heroic instead of being damseled this whole time. But they kick the ship into reverse and they're going back for Gwen. Bastion is like diving for her. He's tied to the ship, obviously, and he dives off. And he has a sword. What is he planning to kill the dragon as he is saving his girlfriend? What the fuck? Would you call it paces if you're all in the air? Gwen was 50 paces away.
If that was the standard unit of measurement of distance used ubiquitously throughout the book, yes.
I can't think of times that it was used. Whenever I think of paces, I think of on the ground. But maybe Meg has decided that her very derivative book shouldn't use feet or yards or anything like that. So
Meters,
she's like,
dear. It's
paces.
sci-fi. Everything should be the metric system.
Yeah, well, maybe she's decided that we don't want to use anything like that because that would remind us too much of our world. So she uses paces instead. It's very lucky that Bastion didn't accidentally stab Gwen when he was like diving down to grab her. But obviously he does get Gwen. He threatens the dragon with the sword. I don't know why that works. And then they flip the ship back into forward again, and they start heading for space as they haul Bastion and Gwen back up. I don't know why the dragon is just like so fixated on Gwen. And we're trying to create a very tense moment. They're being pursued by the dragon. They're getting too high up with their ship so that nobody's like can breathe, and it's getting really cold, and they're like, we have to get the force fields up, but we can't until these people are back on board the ship. And it's supposed to be really tense and everything. It's just so absurd. Like, not necessarily this moment. There's nothing in this moment that's too absurd within the mythology of the book, but to get us here has been so absurd that I'm not concerned about this tense moment at all. So the latest piece of idiocy, they get her on the ship. The dragon passes out from lack of oxygen because they're getting too high up. And I'm like, okay, cool, problem solved. But then Bastion is like, we have to save the dragon. And I'm like, excuse you? And he's like, well, it's because it's a cyborg like us. And the implications of that are kind of horrifying. First of all, it's the dumbest thing he could ever possibly plan to do. A while back, Gwen and Bastion had the opportunity to free some slaves who had been cyborgs but were not any longer. This makes it clear that they would rather save a gigantic lizard who wants to kill them because it is a cyborg than a bunch of humans who are no longer cyborgs. So, cyborg supremacy is real. The Emperor was right. We need to fear these people because they don't give a fuck about anybody except themselves. And then they decide to save the dragon, and then they just do. They just do. They're like, okay, here we go, we're gonna save the dragon. And then it just says, it didn't take long to tie a rope around the dragon and bring it onto the ship. So, how? The dragon is free-falling. They're above it, like almost in space. How do they get a rope around the dragon and haul it onto the ship? I am so confused.
Well, you got me. By all accounts, it doesn't make sense.
And they just happen to have the fireproof cage below deck, so they just haul the dragon's unconscious ass down there. Why even bother to mention it, really? It's because the dragon doesn't matter, and I don't know why we save it. And just to harken back to the beginning of the book, Bastion appeared beside Aurora. And it ends with Aurora being like, turning to Bastion and being like, I think we should talk. So we know that this is finally leading up to our polyamorous throuple, which is fine, but like, you set up another action sequence with trying to save the dragon, and then you hand-waved it away because you clearly don't care. Did a beta reader like feel sorry for the dragon and was like, oh, they shouldn't just let it die? And so Meg was like, cool, I will put in 2 sentences where they recapture the dragon. It's infuriating. It is infuriating.
How is it, Julian?
It's infuriating.
Is it really?
It is.
Gallivant may not believe in you, but I do. I super believe in you, Tad Cooper.
Rita, Thea, Alyssa, Deborah, Afra, Melissa, AC, Swamp Goblin Waifu, Sophia, Merween, Kit, Hidden Glade, Light Julie, Belle, Patrick, Anne Sophie, Ray, Shelby, Zaire, Jesper, Irene, Scribbling Cat, Savvy, Jenny, Amanda, Lisa, Sarah, and Lennox. Thanks for super believing me, everyone.
Hide behind the mound of dead bards.
I have to stand up to Cass. I'm gonna be a sitting duck.
I've got your back.